At the banquet in my past life, my family needed a marriage alliance. My brother asked me who I wanted to choose. Without hesitation, I chose my childhood friend, the lazy and carefree Samuel. But after our wedding, he kept an ambiguous relationship with his crush. They even had a child together. When his friends teased him about it, he scoffed and said, "Grace is the #1 simp in the world. No matter what I do, she'll never leave me." My heart finally shattered. I turned and walked away. But on the highway, I got into a car crash and died with my unborn child. When I opened my eyes again, it was the day of the banquet. Chapter 1. Grace. "Have you decided who you're going to choose?" my brother asked gently. I stood frozen, trembling, still unwilling to believe that I had actually come back to life. Before I could answer, Auntie Koo came up to me, handing me the family heirloom bracelet. She smiled warmly and said, "Grace will definitely pick our boy." The two of them grew up together. Their bond runs deep. No one else can compare. "Mom, are you drunk already? Who would want to marry Grace? She's bad at school, short, and her looks are average. Marry her? Our Koo family's genes would be contaminated." Samuel Koo frowned, his eyes full of contempt as he looked at me. Just like the last life, still that same sharp tongue. But in the last life, I brushed it off as teasing between childhood friends, and I never realized Samuel truly hated me at that moment. Snapping back to reality, I quickly took 2 steps back. "Auntie Koo, Samuel and I are just friends." The room instantly fell silent. Everyone knew our families had been close for generations. Everyone also knew that I had loved Samuel since I was a child. Auntie Koo's smile froze. She looked away from me and forcefully patted her son's shoulder. "Don't talk nonsense. Being able to marry Grace would be the greatest blessing from our past lives." Samuel hadn't expected me to say that. His cold expression darkened even further. I tugged on my brother's suit jacket, eyes red, whispering, "I'm not feeling well. I want to go home." There was no rush to settle the engagement. My brother raised his hand to call someone to take me back. But the next moment, Samuel grabbed my hand, pulling me outside as he said coldly, "Leo, I'll take Grace home myself." He held my hand so tightly I couldn't break free. I wanted to call for help, but when I turned around, I saw Auntie Koo had already blocked my brother. Outside the hotel, Samuel let go of me without hesitation. In my high heels, I lost balance and stumbled a step backward. Out of instinct, I reached toward him. Samuel didn't expect that. He moved to catch me, but I quickly pulled my hand back and fell straight to the ground. Hard. A sharp pain shot through my body and into my head. My face twisted in agony. Samuel's face changed. He stepped forward to help me up. I didn't hesitate. "Don't come near me." After catching my breath, I took off my heels and pushed myself off the ground with both hands. My series of movements made Samuel's face darken completely. He sneered. "What kind of stunt are you pulling now? Playing hard to get? Grace, since when did your tricks get this disgusting?" I looked up, unknowingly. My eyes had filled with tears. "Samuel," I had so much I wanted to say, but when I met his gaze, when I saw the loathing in his eyes, all the words caught like thorns in my throat. I lowered my head and let out a small laugh. Before he could say anything more, I threw the expensive heels onto the ground and walked away barefoot without looking back. Those shoes were a gift from Samuel on my coming-of-age birthday. Auntie Koo once told me he had spent a long time carefully picking them out, knowing how important the banquet was. I had worn them on purpose today, but I had forgotten, those shoes were too big. They weren't made for me. And I had also forgotten, someone who doesn't fit will never truly belong. Chapter 2. Samuel didn't come after me. To him, this was just another manipulative game of playing hard to get. When I got home, I sank into the bathtub, drowsy. Memories from my past life spun endlessly in my mind. My fingers gripped the edge of the tub tightly. The water crept up to my nose, choking me until I gasped back to reality. I climbed out, wrapped myself in a robe, and looked into the mirror. There were no burn marks on this face. Nothing at all. I touched my skin and lowered my head, choking on my sobs. In my past life, when the Koo house caught fire, Samuel didn't hesitate to save another woman. He left me behind. By the time I was rescued, my face was no longer whole. Later, Samuel explained, I didn't see you. Lisa's legs were pinned down, and the fire was too big. Of course I had to save her first. Thinking back on it, I slapped myself hard across the face. Pathetic. I was stupid as hell in my last life, getting played like a fool by a few sweet words from Samuel. Maybe it was the effect of reincarnation. I relived every detail of that previous life in my dreams. When morning came, I woke up utterly drained, perhaps sensing something was off. My brother, who usually left for work early, was still downstairs waiting for me. Come down and have breakfast. He glanced at the dark circles under my eyes and his expression softened with concern. Did I wake you up when I came home late last night? I shook my head and ran into his arms, red-eyed. Clinging to him tightly, he froze for a second, put his newspaper down, and gently patted my back. If loving that cool boy is too exhausting, he said softly, then stop loving him. It's okay. You don't have to marry anyone in this life. I'll take care of you. I sniffled, trying to hold back tears. There had never been any arranged marriage. My brother had simply seen that I liked Samuel and orchestrated everything to help me. But in my past life, he died trying to save me. The ache in my chest grew stronger. I held him tighter, until a soft cough broke the silence. I turned around with teary eyes. Somehow, a man had appeared on the sofa without me noticing. My blurred vision couldn't make out his face. The man smiled. Good morning, little princess. I froze for a moment, then quickly pulled away from my brother. That was Daniel, my brother's closest friend. After my brother died in the last life, Daniel avenged him and beat the murderer to death. The last time I saw him was in prison. He told me he wanted to take me away, said my brother's death wasn't as simple as it seemed. I didn't listen. I was too caught up in trusting people I had known for years. By the time I realized he was right, I was already dying on a highway, bleeding to death during childbirth. Only in that moment did I recognize the last voice I ever heard. You, what are you doing here? I asked, startled. At this point in time, he should have still been in bed, sleeping off a wild night. Daniel raised an eyebrow and smiled. My brother cleared his throat, giving me a subtle look toward the breakfast table. I nodded and sat down to eat, stealing glances at the man behind me. After a while, my brother hesitated but finally spoke. Grace, did Samuel do something to upset you recently? I looked at him, confused. He pulled out his phone and showed me Samuel's latest post. It was a photo of a foggy mountaintop, with the caption, "What do I do? I made the little princess mad. How do I make it up to her?" My hand clenched the spoon instinctively. I hadn't even realized I was shaking. It was that post, the one that convinced me Samuel loved me. But later, I found out the little princess he mentioned was Lisa. It was never me. The porridge that had once smelled delicious now felt like wax in my mouth. Impossible to swallow. I don't want to talk about Samuel anymore, I said with trembling eyes. In this life, I wanted nothing more to do with him. Loving him for 20 years had been nothing but my own delusion. My brother blinked in surprise. He didn't say anything. He simply opened his chat with Samuel. It was all him asking about my whereabouts. After a glance, he blocked and deleted the number without hesitation. He smiled gently. As long as I'm here, you'll never have to suffer. I looked at him through teary eyes. My brother was always like this. He'd choose me, every single time. When I loved Samuel, he paved the way. Now that I didn't, he would clear it away for me. Chapter 3. After breakfast. My brother took me to the company. This company had originally been meant for me to inherit. But after I married Samuel, I spent all my time and energy on him. I barely came to the office, leaving things a mess. In the end, my brother had to return from overseas to handle it all. Everyone knew I was obsessed with Samuel. One employee even tried to secretly hand me a special edition poster of him, but a hand got to it first. I looked up and saw Daniel crumpling the poster into a ball and tossing it in the trash. My brother also chimed in. From today on, nothing related to Samuel is allowed in this company. It suddenly hit me. Right. Samuel was a famous celebrity. Inside the office, my brother instructed his assistant. Tell everyone, take down any posters of Samuel. Brother, there's no need for that. I interrupted. After all, The Koo family still had business dealings with us, not to mention the close ties between our families. My brother could read the worry in my eyes. He shook his head with a soft smile. I told you, I won't let anyone mistreat you. Then he waved for the assistant to follow his orders. He had a meeting, leaving me alone in the office with Daniel. I didn't know him very well. All I'd heard was that he had loved someone for many years. But it was one-sided. The person he loved already had someone else. I turned my head awkwardly, feeling uncomfortable under his gaze. Not long after, my phone rang. I glanced at it for a few seconds, then declined the call without hesitation. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Not gonna answer? Spam, I said, face darkening. A moment later, a text came through. I'm sick. Bring me some medicine, followed by a hotel room number. I frowned at the message, not realizing Daniel had already gotten up. Before I could react, he leaned over with a teasing smile. Well now, who's sending the little princess hotel room numbers? I'd always had strong instincts when it came to personal safety. I could sense Samuel from a mile away. But this time, I was truly startled. My breath caught in my throat. Daniel hadn't expected that. He handed me a glass of water, still half joking. That room number, kinda familiar. Isn't that the suite young Master Koo always uses? Every rich kid had their own reserved suite. Samuel's room number was 0726. I never thought much of it before, but now I suddenly realized. That number was Lisa's birthday. My fingers trembled violently. Daniel's playful tone shifted. He frowned and asked, What's wrong? That Koo brat did something to you? Listen, I may not be good at much, but I can beat people up. I shook my head. Then, without hesitation, I blocked and deleted Samuel's number. Someone who no longer matters isn't worth getting hurt over, I said, looking up at Daniel. His features were almost flirtatious as he met my gaze, making me blush just a little. But Daniel clearly didn't believe I was truly over it. Chapter 4. Samuel was still waiting for his medicine in the hotel room. Yesterday, he had a fight with Grace, and someone happened to witness it. Soon, people in the group chat started teasing. Oh, childhood sweethearts about to break up? Grace the little princess looks really mad this time. Samuel, stop pissing Grace off. One day she'll ignore you for real, and then you'll be crying your eyes out. Reading the messages in the group chat, Samuel sneered coldly. He'd known Grace since they were kids. He knew her personality like the back of his hand. Once she brought him the medicine, he'd just get her a random trinket to cheer her up, and she'd go back to being a total simp for him. This kind of thing had happened thousands of times. Samuel was getting tired of it. He lounged lazily on the sofa, scrolling videos for over half an hour. But the medicine still hadn't arrived. People in the group were still spectating, asking whether she'd brought it over yet. The comments pushed Samuel over the edge. He immediately exited the video app and opened the pinned contact, hesitated for a second, and called her. But as soon as it started ringing, a robotic voice said the number couldn't be reached. Samuel paused. He stared at the phone and tried calling again. Still the same message. Young Master Koo had never been blocked by anyone before. He didn't even realize he'd been blocked. So he looked it up online. After reading the answer, he stood there frozen for a long time. When he finally snapped out of it, his face darkened, and he slammed his brand new phone onto the ground. The phone shattered instantly. Grace, well done, far away. Grace had no idea what was happening, and didn't care what Samuel was going through. By the time her brother finished his meeting, it was already noon. Daniel offered, Hot pot? I'm craving it. I looked at Daniel. Whenever I'm in a bad mood, I always crave spicy hot pot. Only when my mouth is on fire can I stop thinking about frustrating things. Samuel did piss me off earlier. But right now, I felt much better. My brother didn't know what happened. Seeing I had no objection, he immediately asked his assistant to book a table for 3. We picked our usual hot pot place. Standing outside the restaurant, I suddenly felt something I hadn't in a long time. In my last life, because I was pregnant. Samuel claimed hot pot would affect the baby's development. For 9 whole months, I didn't eat anything spicy. Screw you, Samuel. Screw your baby development. As soon as I sat down, I ordered everything on the menu and told the manager. Full spicy, extra spicy, burn your soul spicy. It was the first time I'd ever been this aggressive. Even the manager looked surprised. Then I remembered my brother said Daniel doesn't eat spicy food. So I quickly added, separate pots, please. We were seated in a private room. I didn't have to worry about acting like a proper lady. Once the food arrived, I just kept eating nonstop. My brother gave Daniel a curious look, as if asking what was up. Daniel just waved his hand, but while we were eating, a loud noise came from outside the room. I've always preferred peace and quiet. The noise made my face scrunch up instantly. Daniel noticed and called over the manager. We'll book the whole place today. Let anyone still eating finish up. But don't let more people in. It's getting too noisy. As he spoke, he pulled out a black card. But the manager didn't take it and looked hesitant. Young Master Liu. It's young Master Ku outside. Both sides were not people he could afford to offend. The manager didn't dare make the call. I paused mid-bite. Before we could react, a voice rang out, faster than a body could move. Leo bro, you don't mind if I join with a few people, do you? Chapter 5. Samuel walked in first. Before anyone could stop him, he waved someone in from behind. Lisa, dressed in a cheongsam, appeared behind him. She smiled sweetly. Sorry to interrupt. Samuel sat down first, facing the cold gazes from Daniel and my brother. He smiled and explained. Suddenly felt like hot pot. This is my assistant, Lisa. We were high school classmates. Known each other for years. Thought it'd be a good chance to introduce her. I refuse, I said coldly, staring at Samuel. This kind of unannounced dining was never something he used to do. I didn't understand it, nor did I want to. Lisa was just about to sit when she heard my rejection and immediately stood back up, looking teary-eyed at Samuel. Samuel's smile vanished instantly. He completely forgot my brother was present and snapped. Grace, if you keep acting like this, from today onward, I won't talk to you ever again. The room fell silent. Even the manager, who had been quietly wiping sweat, froze. My brother's expression turned cold, and just as he was about to speak, I tugged him down. I looked at Samuel with indifference. Please don't talk to me. Samuel, starting today, no. Starting yesterday, we are strangers. Whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. I didn't want to love Samuel anymore. Didn't want to know him anymore. That was what I kept telling myself over and over in last night's dream. Samuel froze, clearly not expecting me to say that. He glanced at Daniel sitting next to me. He'd never seen Daniel before, and because Daniel looked younger, Samuel suddenly sneered. Ha, so that's why you're cutting ties with me so fast, already got a new guy. Huh? Grace, you really are shameless. Just yesterday you said you liked me. Today you're already out with someone else? Well, makes sense. This pretty boy does have some looks. His words kept pouring out. Everyone could feel the chill in the air. Even Lisa. She kept tugging on his arm in secret, but it was no use. Daniel sneered. He leaned back with a raised brow, watching him with an arrogant smirk. He didn't seem the slightest bit angry. Instead, he just raised an eyebrow and pointed at Lisa. Samuel didn't understand what he meant, until a swarm of reporters rushed in at the door. Daniel clapped lazily and smiled. If Grace really liked me, I'd be honored. But you, a celebrity getting involved with your assistant? I wonder if that's a scandal big enough to break the internet? He raised his eyes at the reporters with a flirtatious look. It was so charming the reporters almost forgot why they were there. With such a juicy scoop, they immediately swarmed Samuel and Lisa. Before I could react, a hand grabbed mine, pulling me out through the back door. I didn't expect Daniel to speak up for me. Remembering his words earlier, my heart fluttered for a moment, but I quickly composed myself. Thank you, Daniel. I turned to look for my brother, normally calm and collected. He was furiously giving instructions to his assistant. Get me a meeting with the Ku family. I want to see what kind of trash son they've raised, and dig into exactly what's going on between Samuel and Lisa. It all came out in one breath. He was still furious. I tugged on my brother's sleeve. I originally thought we could just cut ties with the Ku family and move on, but I knew my brother would never let me be wronged. Samuel's words earlier clearly made him angry. Brother, Samuel's words don't affect me anymore. All I want is, I paused, glancing at Daniel, then continued. I just want you two to stay safe and healthy. Chapter 6. The next day. On my way to my brother's company, I was kidnapped. I woke up in an abandoned factory, my hands tightly tied with rope. The moment I opened my eyes and saw this familiar place, memories came flooding back to me all at once. I was stunned for a long while. This kidnapping wasn't supposed to happen until years later. I never expected it to come early. I had known it would happen eventually. That's why I was headed to my brother's company in the first place, to ask him to hire some bodyguards. He always had high standards, and I trusted he could help. The kidnappers had their faces covered. When they saw I was awake, they immediately demanded I call someone to ask for 10 million yuan in ransom. What are you staring at? If I don't get the money, I'll kill you. The kidnapper glared at me with more than just hostility. His look wasn't that of a typical criminal. It was full of hatred, disgust, and something far more personal. I trembled slightly and nodded. Okay, I have money. Don't worry, I have money. Untie me first. My brother needs to see that I'm safe or he won't pay. If you don't untie me, he won't believe it. The kidnapper didn't expect me to be so cooperative. As he untied me, he warned me. I'm telling you, try anything funny, and I'll kill you. I stayed silent, just staring at him. I had been tied up for a long time. Once released, I was too weak to stand and collapsed onto the ground. The kidnapper waved a gun at me. Don't waste time. Call now. I took the phone and pretended to dial. There was barely any signal in this place. I walked a step forward, with the kidnapper following behind. When we reached the edge of the second floor of the old building, the call's not going through? You trying to get someone to rescue you? The kidnapper sensed something was off and lunged forward to snatch the phone. Without hesitation, I threw the phone off the second floor. He froze for a second, then, realizing what I'd done, slammed a brutal kick into my stomach. I hit the ground hard. My face scraped across the rough surface, tearing skin and drawing blood. Blood dripped from the corner of my mouth. He tied me back up and rushed downstairs to retrieve the phone. The second floor wasn't that high. Normally, a phone wouldn't break that easily, but I had used all my strength, and the place was covered in rocks. It hit the stones hard and shattered into pieces. Completely dead. Seeing the phone was useless, the kidnapper cursed furiously, then punched me again and again, but I never stopped smiling, even though I could barely speak. My eyes were telling him one thing: I will never let you hurt my family again. In my last life, it was because of this kidnapping. I tried calling Samuel, but he didn't answer. The kidnappers eventually found my brother's number, but ransom was never what they really wanted. To save me, my brother died, shot by the kidnapper. No phone meant no way to contact the outside world. The kidnapper shoved a hood over my head and gagged me, then poured gasoline all around me. He noticed the safety amulet hanging around my neck and yanked it off, sneering darkly. You better pray your brother comes to save you. If he doesn't, you're not just going to die, trust me. It'll be worse than death. His eyes scanned my body with a sinister glint, but I didn't pay attention to what he said. No matter what happened, as long as my brother stayed safe, that was enough for me. Chapter 7. News of my kidnapping spread online, but what I didn't expect was that the first person to find me was Samuel. He was the first to locate the factory. The moment he saw my injuries, he landed a vicious kick straight into the kidnapper's chest. The kidnapper dropped to his knees from the impact. Who said you could touch her? Samuel's expression was grim, darker than I'd ever seen, a version of him I didn't recognize. I stared at him in disbelief. What shocked me even more was the realization that Samuel knew the kidnapper. A thought crept into my mind, one I didn't dare believe. I stared at him in horror. Maybe I'd been too selfish. I wanted to believe that in my previous life, Samuel hadn't answered my call because he didn't get it. I didn't want to believe he had anything to do with the kidnappers, or with my brother's death. The rope around my hands was cut loose, and Samuel pulled me into his arms. I didn't have the strength to fight him off, but the look I gave him was filled with despair. Samuel, you know him? Only the kidnapper and I were there to hear. Samuel's worried expression froze instantly. He clenched his fists, eyes filled with a pain I'd never seen before. He checked me over for injuries. but didn't answer my question. I grabbed the front of his shirt with shaking hands, demanding over and over again, "You know him? You know the kidnapper? Tell me, Samuel, tell me." My voice grew louder and shakier with each repetition. Samuel only held me tighter, locking me firmly in his arms. "Grace, I'll explain everything when we get out of here. I promise I will." His grip was strong. Grace was small and frail, and in that moment, her breathing was so shallow she seemed like she might disappear at any second. What a great performance. Lisa appeared, flanked by several men. The kidnapper immediately rushed to her side. I followed his movement with my eyes. He looked exactly the same as he had in the last life, and when he saw Lisa, he lit up, wrapping his arms around her and kissing her without hesitation. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you get your revenge." As soon as the words left his mouth, the kidnapper raised a gun and fired in my direction. Before I could react, Samuel moved first, shielding me with his body. The bullet slammed into his left shoulder. He broke out into a cold sweat, his face contorted in pain. Lisa let out a concerned gasp and immediately scolded the kidnapper. "If anything happens to him, I'll never forgive you." She moved closer, eyes full of concern, but before she could reach me, Samuel weakly lifted his arm and blocked her path. "Stay away from Grace," he said hoarsely. Just one sentence, and Lisa's expression changed entirely. "Samuel, you like her? What about me?" Her voice trembled. 7 years. For 7 years, all he'd ever cared about was that childhood sweetheart. She couldn't understand what was so special about me. Lisa glared at me. I was still in Samuel's arms, only my dark eyes visible, quietly staring back at her. She signaled her people to separate us, but Samuel clung to me tightly. Every time he moved, blood poured from his shoulder. Lisa crouched beside us, furious as she watched the man she loved losing consciousness, still holding on to me. It was driving her insane. I couldn't understand Samuel's behavior, and the things Lisa said. "He likes me? What a joke. If he really liked me, he wouldn't have left me in that burning house. He wouldn't have been drunk with another woman while I was kidnapped. He wouldn't have ignored my call when I was in a car accident." As if sensing my thoughts, Samuel gently brushed a strand of hair off my forehead. "Don't worry, help is on the way." Just as he said that, the sound of sirens and ambulances blared from outside the building. Neither the kidnapper nor Lisa had expected it. Samuel had figured out something was off, suspected Lisa was involved, and secretly checked her phone. He called the police on the way here. The kidnapper was the first to react. He threw a lit lighter, setting the gasoline-soaked floor on fire. Lisa screamed in shock. "What are you doing? Samuel's still in there. We have to save him." She rushed forward, only to be knocked out cold with a hard hit to the back of the head. Before he left, the kidnapper sneered, "Then let the star-crossed lovers die together, ha ha ha." The fire spread quickly. I could barely breathe. Once I regained a little strength, I used everything I had to try pulling Samuel up. The flames blocked the main exit. I shook Samuel's shoulder, but he had already passed out, completely unresponsive. Panicked, I looked around the room. Finally, my gaze landed on the second-floor balcony, the same place I'd thrown the phone. It wasn't very high. If we jumped right, we might survive. Dragging his unconscious body with me, I tried to shove him off the edge, but my hands were soaked in blood, it reminded me. I looked down at the crimson stains on my palms, then closed my eyes in resignation. I shifted him in front of me, positioning my body underneath to cushion the fall. "Samuel, you took a bullet for me. Now we're even." Without hesitation, I let my body fall backward into the flames, and just before I hit the ground, I heard someone screaming my name, just like in my previous life. Only this time, I saw the face clearly. It was Daniel, running toward me, panic written all over his face. Chapter 8. I regained consciousness in the hospital, groggy and disoriented. I opened my eyes and reached out to tap Daniel on the head. The moment he saw I was awake, he rushed off to get the doctor. The doctor ran a full-body checkup. Aside from some scrapes and bruises, there were no serious issues. When my brother heard I'd woken up, he immediately left his meeting and rushed over. Seeing that I was okay, he held me tightly, eyes red with emotion. You silly girl, no matter what happens, you have to tell your big brother. While trying to sneak out of the country, the kidnapper and Lisa were caught. According to the kidnapper, he was supposed to have Grace call and demand ransom, but she didn't cooperate and even destroyed the phone. In his fury, he kicked her a few times. Hearing this, my brother nearly lost it. Ignoring everyone else, he grabbed the kidnapper and landed several hard punches. Turns out, the kidnapper was Lisa's obsessed ex-boyfriend. Even knowing Lisa was involved with Samuel, he still loved her. After learning that his beloved ended up like this because of me, he went all in and kidnapped me. I froze for a second, then hugged my brother tightly. He was safe in this lifetime. That was all that mattered. In his arms, I looked over his shoulder at Daniel. His eyes were tired but filled with relief. Silently, I mouthed a thank you. His hand was injured. He must have helped beat up the kidnapper too. On the third day after I woke up, Mrs. Koo quietly came to see me in secret. She dropped to her knees as soon as she saw me. Auntie Koo, please don't do this. Seeing her reminded me of Samuel. She was crying hard, begging, Grace, you and Samuel have been close since you were kids. He's badly injured. He still hasn't woken up. The doctor says if he doesn't wake up soon, he might end up in a coma. I know you just woke up yourself, and I wouldn't bother you if it weren't serious. I was stunned for a few seconds, then followed her to the hospital room. Samuel's wounds had been treated, but he remained unconscious. I stared at him, frozen. I used to think I understood him, but after everything in the last life, I realized I never truly knew Samuel at all. Not in the past life, not in this one. I watched him for a long time, so long that I didn't even notice someone standing at the door. A breeze from the window swept in. I moved on instinct to close it. Just as I stood up, a warm hand grabbed mine. Startled, I turned around and met Samuel's clear, icy gaze. Daniel was the first to react outside the room, followed by Mrs. Koo, who had just come in. When she saw her son had woken up, she was overjoyed and immediately called for the doctor. Throughout the entire examination, Samuel's eyes never left me. Once the doctor confirmed he was out of danger, I turned and quietly walked out of the room. Daniel was waiting for me. He raised a brow and smiled lightly. Not going to look at him anymore? I shook my head. I'd already seen enough in the last life. Chapter 9. Even though what happened to Samuel was tragic, the blame still lay with him. Old Mr. Koo had always been strict and very concerned with the family's reputation and their ties to other prominent families. Mrs. Koo had hoped to speak on Samuel's behalf, but before she could do anything, explosive scandals between him and Lisa started flooding in, to the point where it nearly gave her a heart attack. Turns out, Samuel and Lisa had been involved for years, though their relationship was more like that of casual partners. Samuel knew perfectly well that he would never marry someone like Lisa. His reputation was in ruins. He was blacklisted from the industry. Lisa and the kidnapper were both sentenced to prison. Originally, there should have been no more ties between me and the Koo family. But the old Mr. Koo fell gravely ill, and he had always doted on me since I was a child. At Mrs. Koo's repeated requests, I went to the Koo residence to visit him. Grandpa Koo apologized on behalf of his grandson over and over again. Each time, I just shook my head in silence. After he fell asleep, I quietly left the room, only to turn and bump into Samuel. He had been waiting there all along. His body looked like it had lost 20 pounds, frail enough to collapse with the wind. I froze for a second, then continued walking as if nothing had happened. He grabbed my hand. I stopped and looked at him. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but looking at my brother, healthy and safe, looking at myself, still here, I realized those questions didn't matter anymore. He only held on for 2 seconds, then let go. On the way home, a warm breeze blew against my face. I stretched my hand out the car window. In my palm was a safety amulet. Maybe the wind was too strong. The safety charm fell off, just like everything between Samuel and me. Blown away, with nothing left behind. Chapter 10. According to Samuel, during the days he was unconscious, he had a terrifying dream. In it, he married Grace, but treated her terribly, unforgivably so. He dreamed of a fire, too. He hadn't seen Grace in the flames, but blamed himself anyway. His attention had been entirely on someone else. Because of him, the girl who always loved beauty had her face destroyed. He dreamed about the kidnapping too. That night, he had drunk way too much because of work. When he sobered up, Grace was sobbing into his arms, her eyes swollen red. Her voice trembled as she said, "I don't have a brother anymore." He also dreamed about all the arrogant, mocking things he'd said to his friends to save face. And then, the moment he received news about Grace's car accident, both she and the child were gone. He woke up and slapped himself hard across the face. The dream kept repeating, over and over again, like it wasn't just a dream, but a memory. So when he saw Grace again, all he wanted was to confirm the truth. But the moment he grabbed her hand and saw the coldness in her eyes, he didn't dare ask. He was afraid that everything in the dream had really happened. If that were true, he'd never forgive himself. Samuel had a secret. He had always liked Grace. Really liked her. Seeing her get jealous because of him made him feel genuinely happy. She was the one he had always wanted to marry. What happened with Lisa was a mistake. He didn't even understand how it had started. He regretted it so deeply. Everyone in their circle said Lisa was his true love, but no one knew. Grace was the only one in his heart. And now, he knew he had truly, completely lost her. Chapter 11. Worried that I might be heartbroken over Samuel. My brother simply gave me some money and told me to go take a vacation. At the airport, I ran into Daniel. He raised an eyebrow and smiled at me playfully, holding his plane ticket up in front of my eyes as he chuckled. What a coincidence. Same flight. Mind if I tag along, beautiful lady? I laughed and nodded. It was a long trip. As I started to drift off, Daniel asked the flight attendant for a blanket. When he gently draped it over me, he leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Dummy, you're my one true love." What he didn't notice was, I had quietly opened my eyes, and what he didn't know was, his little secret I had known for a long time.